and welcome friends to my program Book Corner. The book for today is OPIUM Inc. How a Global Drug Trade Funded the British Empire by Thomas Manuel. But first the introduction. The book brings to us the story of the world's biggest drug deal ever, first published in India in 2021 by HarperCollins. The paperback price of the book is rupees 599. Viewers, let me tell you at the very outset only that it appears the author has done a great amount of research by digging into various historical texts on the opium supply chain and trade before writing this book. And now something about the author. Author Thomas Manuel is a journalist and an award-winning playwright whose work revolves around history, science, education, or the intersection of all the three. His works can be found in Lapham's Quarterly, Nib, Wire, and The Hindu, among other publications. In 2016, he won the Hindu Playwright Award for his play Hamlet and Angad. He currently works at India Inc., a public history project where he makes videos about how the past continues to affect us today. Friends, let me first take you through the contents of this book. The book is divided into 11 chapters. I would take you through all of them without being a spoiler. It starts with the poppy pioneers and then talks of how the opium trade flourished from Calcutta to Canton in China. Canton is also known as Guangzhou. It was captured by the British during the First Opium War. Then the author writes about the smugglers of Malwa. There is also the Bombay boom that came with the opium money. One of the most interesting parts of the book is the opium wars that gave rise to opium crusaders. The book also takes you through opium and independence, its endings and legacies. One of the great chapters of the book is about the spread of opium, cotton, sugar and slavery, followed by opium smoke and mirrors, and it ends with opium today. This is followed by the index and a page about the author. The language used by the author is plain English, which is easy to comprehend with a plethora of quotes from various texts that make up for a large part of the content. What to look for in the book? This is the story of the world's biggest drug dealers. In the 19th century, the British East India Company operated a triangle of trade that straddled the globe, running from India to China to Britain. From India to China, they took opium. From China to Britain, they took tea. From Britain to India, they brought the empire. To paraphrase the historian Tan Chung, the Chinese got opium, the British got tea, and the Indians got colonialism. It was a formulation that belied what was really going on. The British were enabling the longest running drug deal in the history of the world. It was a machine that worked with cheap Indian land and labor and spun money. This is the story about the banality of evil, the birth of mega corporations, and the world's first narco-state. The British had two problems though. They were importing enormous amounts of tea from China, but the celestial empire, that is China, looked down on British goods and only wanted silver in return. Simultaneously, the expanding colony in India was proving far too expensive to maintain. The British solved both the problems with opium, which became the source of income on which they built their empire. For more than a century, the British knew that the drug was dangerous but continued to trade in it anyway, and today they talk of morality. They put their colony to work to produce something that the Chinese would buy even if they didn't want it, and that was opium. Over the 18th and 19th centuries, the British transformed the entire farming economies in Bengal and Bihar into opium-producing machines, and their agents smuggled the drug illegally to China, exchanging it for tea. Suddenly, the balance of trade leaned the other way. Silver started flowing back out of China into British hands. Slowly, this new equation solidified into a stable system, the Great Opium Triangle. The story of the opium trade is not just about the narcotics that were stored in chests and packed in ships. It was also about how that trade shaped the world we live in today. Its legacy in India, whether the poverty of Bihar or the wealth of Bombay, is still not acknowledged. Like many colonial institutions in India, the story of opium is one of immense pain for many and huge privileges for a few. Now, my take on the book. If you haven't read about opium, you wouldn't know what havoc it created in the world. Opium Inc. sensitizes you towards that. While reading, one gets a feeling as if the author has collated the data from various texts and spun into a book. In a span of 252 pages, he has pulled out around 350 notes from various documents of various authors that go to show the extent of his extensive research. Every chapter is summarized in the preface in a few sentences, which creates that initial interest to run through the book. It has plenty of inside stories and anecdotes hitherto unheard of. The detailing with respect to how opium is processed is cool. From the opium seed to the market, the narration is quite comprehensive, and how opium markets in China operated is something amazing that many would not know. The story of Pan Zhencheng in the chapter From Calcutta to Canton is engrossing. The book gets very descriptive in the middle. The chapter Smugglers from Malwa is also very elaborate on opium making and trading. This is a book with a lot of yarn, which otherwise for an average reader would be difficult to find. The author must have spent an eon reading and collecting relevant data for the title. Information such as the first clipper was built in India in the 19th century in Howrah was a treat to read, even when it was an opium clipper. The history of Bombay is also well written with its opium past, and so are the stories of Jamsetji, Gigi Boy, and Sasson, who flourished in Bombay. We all talk of contract farming today. The cultivation of opium under contract farming started way before it came to other crops in the opium growing states. The author has also covered the story of Lin Zexu, in whose honor a statue has been erected in Chatham Square in Chinatown, New York. The book claims that the opium wars were like unacknowledged world wars. After page 136, the book slows down a bit as it is loaded with too many details and historical names which are difficult to remember. There is one story after another and episode after episode. The narration covers the history of sugar, opium, tea, and cotton in a triangular context. India, China, and Great Britain in great detail. It gives a view of cross-ocean business mercantile, what you can expect from the book. Friends, the real success of any book is how it impacts you after you've read it. And do you feel knowledge rich? Well, on these accounts, the book is a sterling. It tells you how the British demolished Asia. The narration transcends from opium to sugar to cotton under the umbrella of the East India Company. It covers most writers who have written on opium, and it also covers documents on opium. There are some rare pictures too in the book on manufacturing of opium, such as the mixing room, the stacking room, the examining hall at the opium factory, Patna, 1850. The opium fleet on the Ganges in the year 1850. It zooms past some romantic poets who were opium users and quotes the lines of a few. The book is from the historical past of opium to the present. A line from the poem Kubla Khan by the English romantic poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge sums up all too well. It goes as follows. Beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair. Weave a circle round him thrice, and close to your eyes with holy dread, for he on honeydew hath fed and drunk the milk of paradise. But whether the milk of paradise that so terrified and dazzled the poem speaker is opium isn't clear, but it's true that Coleridge consumed opium regularly. I would give the book a rating of A. It definitely enhances your knowledge of opium, tea, cotton, and the triangle connecting India, China, and the British Crown through the East India Company. That's all I have for today, friends. See you in my next program. Goodbye.